People say that the carnivore diet is bad for your heart, destroys your kidneys, and doesn't give you enough vitamins. Sounds familiar? Well, I've been eating only meat for over a year. I've lost 20 kilos and I feel better than ever. I'm here to break down the 10 biggest myths about the diet, because most of what you've heard is just plain wrong, and stick around because myth number 4 is the biggest lie of them all. And believing it might be stopping you from getting the results you're after. Let's get started. The carnivore diet just destroys your kidneys is the first myth. One of the biggest fears of the carnivore diet is that eating only meat will ruin your kidneys. You probably heard that too much protein causes kidney damage, but that's not actually how it works. Let's break down why these myths keep getting repeated and what the real science says. The idea that high protein damage the kidneys comes from studies on people with pre-existing kidney disease. If your kidneys are already failing, then yes, too much protein can be a real problem. But for healthy people, study shows that protein does not harm your kidney function. In fact, research on athletes and bodybuilders who eat way more protein than the average person shows zero negativity effects on their kidneys. And let's be real, if meat causes kidney failure, humans won't have survived for thousands of years eating it. Some argue that excess nitrogen from protein plus stress on the kidneys, but the body is designed to handle it. The real issue, processed junk food, excessive sugar, which are far more damaging to kidney health. If you have healthy kidneys, there's zero evidence that eating a meat-based diet will harm them. What will harm your kidneys is continuing eating high-carb, high-sugar processed foods while worrying about meat. Now let's talk about another myth that's stopping people from even trying carnivore. Cholesterol. Myth number 3. Carnivore diet will give you a heart attack. People have been told for decades that eating too much red meat and saturated fat causes heart disease. Is way of the many reasons people hesitate to try the carnivore. But what if the whole carnivore cholesterol scare was based on outdated misleading research? The fear of dietary cholesterol comes from an old study that confuses correlation with people with heart disease often have high cholesterol, but doesn't mean that the high cholesterol causes their heart disease. In fact, modern research shows that higher cholesterol in healthy people is often linked to lower rates of death. Meanwhile, seed oil, processed carbs and sugar, things carnivore eliminate, have a direct link to heart disease. Critic will say, but what about LD? Here's the thing, LDA by itself doesn't mean much unless it's oxidized, which happens when you're eating a high carb inflammation diet. If anything eliminates sugar and processed junk food is on carnivore is likely to improve your heart health, not destroying it. Saturated fat and cholesterol are not the enemy. Processed food and junk food are. If you are worried about heart disease, cutting out carb is far more beneficial than avoiding meat. But let's address another misconcern but people have nutrition deficiencies. And the myth number 3 is people become deficient in vitamins and minerals. One of the biggest criticisms of carnivore is that you'll miss out on the essential nutrition but not eating fruits and vegetables. People assume that without plants you will be lacking fiber and vitamin C and other key vitamins. But the truth is that meat provides everything your body needs if you eat it properly. Let's start with vitamin C, since that is the one of the everything worries about. Did you know that fresh meat contains vitamin C? While it's not as high as citrus fruit, but the body actually needs much less vitamin C than when it's not processing a high carb diet. As for fiber, there's no solid evidence that fiber is essentially for digestion. Many people actually see the gut health improve when they start eating it. Another nutrition, meat is backed with bioavailability vitamins like B12, iron, zinc, and fat sources like A, D, E, and K. People assume they need plants for oxidation, but your body produces its own oxidation when it overloaded with sugar and inflammation. Meat isn't just high in nutrition, it provides them in the most absorbable form. As long as you're eating variety of animal foods, nutrition deficiency, carnivore aren't the concern. Now, what about claim that the carnivore is just another fad diet? Myth number 4 is that carnivore is just a fad diet. People love dismissing carnivore as the trendy diet that fade away like all the others. They say it's unsustainable and extreme, but the truth is carnivore is just new. It's one of the oldest human diets in history. Fad diets are typically based on gimmicks like cutting calories and to an extreme level or drinking meal replacement shakes. Carnivore, on the other hand, is based on human evolution. Our ancestors thrived on the animal foods for thousands of years. Look at the Inuit and the Maasai and other traditional carnivore-based cultures. They are strong, healthy, and no obesity and other modern disease. Meanwhile, the actually fad diet is the modern diet full of seed oils and sugar and processed junk food that only became widespread the last 100 years. Critics argue that eliminating all the plant food is unnecessary, but for many people, cutting them out leads to dramatic health improvement. The question is whether carnivore is extreme. The question is whether the modern diets are the real problem. Carnivore isn't a fad. It is a return to the way humans are built to eat. The real fad is thinking we need processed food and seed oils to be healthy. Let's tackle another myth. What happens to your gut without fiber? You need fiber for digestion. We've all been told that fiber is essential for good digestion. The idea is without fiber you get constipated and your gut health will suffer. But what if fiber isn't necessary as we've been led to believe? Most people assume fiber is good for digestion because it adds bulk to stool. But adding bulk doesn't always mean better digestion. Many people with IBS, bloating and constipation actually feel worse when eating too much fiber. Research has shown that cutting out fiber completely can reduce bloating and constipation, not making it worse. Plus, the idea that you need fiber for healthy gut bacteria doesn't hold up. Your gut microfibers just thrive fine on animal-based nutrition. Some argue that fiber prevents colon cancer, but multiple studies have found no strong link between fiber intake and lower cancer risk. If fiber wasn't essential, then people doing long-term carnivore would have major gut issues, but they don't. You don't need fiber for good digestion. In many cases, cutting it out actually helps your gut can function just fine on zero fiber diet. Now let's move to another big concern, muscle loss on the carnivore. Myth number 6, you lose muscles on the carnivore diet. One of the biggest concerns about carnivore is that you don't get enough protein or carbs to maintain muscles. People assume that without carbs you can't fuel your works out or building muscles. But the reality is carnivore provides everything your body needs to build and preserve muscles without the downsides of carb-based diets. First, let's talk about protein. Meat is most complete source of protein available, packed with all the essential amino acids your body needs to grow and repair muscles. You don't need carbs for muscles growth. Bodybuilders have been using ketogenic and low-carb approaches for years to maintain lean mass. The body can generate glucose from protein to gluconeogenesis, meaning you don't need to eat carbs for fuel workouts. Critics say, what about glycogen? Here's the truth. Your body can replace glycogen just fine on high-protein, high-fat diets. Many top athletes like world-class endurance runners and pro lifters thrive on carnivore without any muscle loss. If anything, eliminating inflammatory foods helps increasing strength, endurance, and recovery. You don't lose muscles on the carnivore diet. If anything, you gain a lean muscle mass. As long as you're eating enough protein and stay fat on your body will stay strong. Now let's talk about something that really scares people, eating too much fat. Myth number 7, eating too much fat will make you fat. We've been told for decades that eating fat makes you fat. The idea is that if you don't eat too much fat, your body will store and you will gain weight. But the truth is, fat isn't the problem. Excessive carbs and processed foods are. When you eat high-fat diet with carbs, your body shifts into fat-burning mode. This means you're using dietary fat for energy instead of storing it. On the other hand, when you're eating a high-carb diet, your body prioritizes burning sugar, which means dietary fat doesn't get stored. People worry that eating too much fat will slow weight loss. But the real issue is mixing high fat with high carbs. That's what leads to weight gain. Critics argue that fat is calorie dense, but carnivore naturally regulates appetite, meaning most people don't overeat. If fat made people fat, then ancient hunter-gatherers, the Inuit and the Maasai, who ate diets high in animal fat, would have been obese. Instead, they were lean, strong, and free from modern disease. Eating fat won't make you fat. Excess carbs and junk food will. On carnivore, your body burns fat for fuel, making weight loss easier and more sustainable. Now, let's clear up another common misconception. How long can you stay on the carnivore? Myth number 8. Carnivore is only safe for short-term use. A lot of people think that carnivore is something that you can only do for a few months before it became dangerous. They assume that without variety your health will suffer over time. But long-term carnivore have shown that this diet is completely sustainable for years. If carnivore is dangerous, long-term we'd expect to see serious health problems in who have been doing it for years. Instead, we see the opposite. People report better digestion, stable energy, and reduced inflammation. Some argue that lack of food variety is bad for your health. But variety for the sake of variety isn't necessary if your diet is already nutritionally complete. The Inuit and the Maasai and the other traditional carnivore countries thrive for generations without modern balanced diets. And many people who switch to the carnivore long term, finding that their blood work, energy levels and overall health improve, not decline. If anything, adding back plant food after months of carnivore often worsens health for people with autoimmune or gut issues. Carnivore isn't just a short-term hack. It is a long-term sustainability way of eating for those who thrive on it. There's no reason for stopping it improving your health. Now let's tackle one of the weirdest myths out there, bad breath on carnivore. Myth number 9. Carnivore will give you bad breath. One of the biggest, strangest myths about the carnivore diet is that it makes your breath smell terrible. People assume that because keto breath is a thing, carnivore breath must be even worse. But this is completely misunderstood. Keto breath happens when your body starts producing ketones, especially acetone, which can give you a fruity or metallic smell. This is usually only lasts for a few weeks while your body adapts. Carnivore breath, on the other hand, almost never is an issue because the diet eliminates the food that actually causes bad breath. Sugar, processed carbs and fiber, heavy foods that ferment in your gut. In your breath smells bad on the carnivore, it's usually a sign of poor digestion or dehydration, not the diet itself. Once the body fully adapts, most people don't have to be bad breath. In fact, many people report that their breath improves on the carnivore diet because they're not dealing with gut fermentation and sugar elevation buildups. Bad breath on the carnivore is short-term issue and most isn't a problem because your body adapts. If anything, it reduces bad breath by eliminating the real culprits, sugar and processed foods. Finally, let's talk about one of the biggest myths, that is sustainability and environmental impact. Myth number 10 is carnivore is bad for the environment. A lot of people argue that eating meat is unsustainable and bad for the environment. They say raising animals takes up too much land, produces too much maintenance and contributes to a climate change. But what they don't mention is how plant-based architectures is caused massive environmental damage. Industrial farming of soy, corn and wheat destroys topsoil's dependent nutrition and requires massive amounts of pesticides and synthetic fertilizers. Compare that to renegade farming, where animals improve soil health by fertilizing and aerating the land. Grass-fed cattle are actually carbon neutral because they sequence carbon in the soil. And while people love to bring up methane, the truth is that methane from cows is part of natural carbon cycle, unlike fossil fuels which add new carbon to the atmosphere. Critics argue that feeding the world with meat isn't sustainable, but properly managed animal restores ecosystems instead of depleting them. If sustainability is the concern, we should be fixing our farming methods, not blaming cows for environmental damage caused by human mismanagement. Meat isn't destroying the planet, industrial agriculture is. Regenerative animals farming is not only sustainable but essential for long-term environmental health. Now that we have busted the top 10 myths on the carnivore diet, let's wrap things up. Most arguments against the carnivore diet fall apart when you look at the facts. If you've been holding back because of these myths, now you know that the truth. Carnivore is effective, sustainable and backed by real science. And if you are interested in learning more about this diet, please click this video and we see you there and we will talk more about the carnivore diet. So press this video and I'll see you over there.